say that? Can you be canceled for saying pig? Is it I don't know the origins of any of this stuff, by the way. I have no idea.
You might piss off the pigs. And, I don't think the Romans are going to start marching. So they call it a dead language. I don't call it a dead language there. There's so many words derived from Latin. So I like to say it's alive, I mean,
there is, I'm trying to remember what it's called. I think it's Spotlight. There's like a directory for actors in the UK that your agent would just put you in if you're going for auditions. And I was in it for a bit when I was in the UK and was auditioning for stuff. And so I showed up for an audition for a small role in a TV show. And they were looking at my profile, and I guess my agent had checked the wrong box because it had me down as a fluent native speaker of Latin. I was born and raised in
oh my gosh,
in ancient Rome. My
this
centurion father was.
I get in my mind. I get this picture of Matt just showing up in a toga.
Just purely coincidentally, I'd just been to a frat party, but it's
you're trying to think all the Latin, you're like habeas corpus, carpe diem.
I think one of the things about that is that I think that a lot of people can learn more languages than they think they can. They just have this kind of deer in the headlights look because it goes, the grammar, the pronunciation, the conjugation is all so foreign compared to whatever my local language is. But in reality, it's just understanding patterns, right, and rhythms and all that, right?
Yeah, well, people forget too that English is very arguably the most complicated language. So I think we're assuming, most of Americans at least assume that every other language is going to be that intricate, that complicated, and it's not always the case. It's usually not.
I do have to. I don't know if any of you have this though. Sometimes I have to stop myself if I see a kid, a foreign kid speaking another language. I'm like, wow, that kid's learned Italian. It's just, how clever is that kid? How clever is that Italian child? Our kids can only speak English.
I mean, look. Here's one of the things I always talk about. This is that when comedians come to HI Santa Monica, and they used to do those shows and everything like that, a lot of the times afterwards they kind of said, they're like, wow, I've never realized how much I haven't traveled, how much I haven't experienced, just because of all my references are so local or just regional. And I think, Claude, obviously, you're somebody who, I don't know, you've performed in Antarctica, pretty sure. So, you've done shows all over the place. Do you feel as a performer that it's important for you to play not only just as many countries as you can, but many different types of people as you can?
Oh yeah, 100%. I've seen a lot of comedians in LA who I think they're brilliant, but they haven't got out of that bubble, and they're just making immediate assumptions about everyone. They're like, oh yeah, everybody here, I'm sure they hate Trump, and they live in an apartment that they spend too much money, and that they're all they know is their life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They don't know beyond that, and so yes, I do think it's important to perform for people from different perspectives who disagree with you and who have different upbringings, and it's just more interesting, and it challenges you. And Mike, this just hit me. So Matt, when I would do the show Comedy in English with Mike, sometimes I get there early and I would help him promote. He'd give me some flyers, I'd walk around and hand them to people. And I vividly remember this for some reason. I got on the elevator, which is very lazy because there's 2 floors. I don't know why I just didn't walk, but I get on there, and there's a gentleman. It was just myself and this other gentleman, and I don't know where he was from. Maybe Bulgaria, maybe Romania, possibly Kosovo. But I do know one thing about this guy. He didn't know what. I know that because all I said was this. I gave him the flyer, and I said, hi, there's a comedy show. It's at 8:30. It's free, and there's also free snacks and drinks. And he looks at me really seriously, and he goes, I don't like music. I don't play any. That's great. This is going to work out, you know. But I remember Mike and I were joking about, like, you know, does he go through his entire day doing this? Does he answer questions no one ever asked him? You know, like, is he at a restaurant and the waiter's like, our special tonight, we have Salisbury steak and we also have potato au gratin with a seafood platter. I don't like foosball. We're not going to play it. We're going to eat. But like, Mike, how often would you say you ran into characters like that?
Oh my God! I mean, do you remember? There was. I don't think you were there that night, but there was the woman with the banana. The banana woman. there was this woman. There was this woman who came out, and she walks out of the room and she goes, "Do you have any other snacks? Perhaps a banana?" And I said, "Unfortunately, this is all I have." I'm like, "These are pretty healthy. You can try this." And I gave her this like biscuit, like a Nutri-Grain bar or whatever it is type of thing. And she takes a bite out of it and goes, "Puh!" and spits it out.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what country is this acceptable behavior? There's no way that this is just commonplace. Like,
no, that's just a crazy person. That's a bad person. I remember that, like, stand-up is pretty global now. Most countries in the world, if not all countries in the world, have some version of it. But I think that's fairly new. I think YouTube, the internet, is responsible for that. Years ago, like, there wasn't really anything. Like, France, for example, did not have until relatively recently what you would identify as like modern, like, conventional stand-up, one person standing at a microphone talking to the audience, rather than like these sort of one-person sketches or multi-person sketches or clowning or whatever. I remember years ago trying to explain my job to some French girl in London, and the closest she got was, "So you like one of those people who stands in supermarkets talking about special offers?"
She thought you were a promotions barker in a supermarket.
Right,
yeah, right. Like, yeah, I give out samples, and that's my job.
Well, oh gosh, well,
I stand in front of a little pyramid of cans. And...
well, you know, one of the things is that I think you're right, though, Matt, in regards to like social media and YouTube and everything like that. Definitely has globalized, for lack of a better term, traditional stand-up comedy. Although nowadays most of traditional stand-up comedy means, hey, I have a podcast. I'm going to go up here and do a Q&A for 45 minutes and then promote my TikTok. But you know, the setup punch, the punchlines, act outs, all that stuff. I think people are much more familiar with that type of thing. For the longest time, the layperson did not seem to understand the difference between stand-up comedy, improv comedy, and sketch comedy. They saw it all as the same animal.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And also, when it was new, like, the internet there are a few like cheats in different languages that the internet has put an end to. Like, there's been a few different cases of people who were caught years later, like, who got famous in their own countries, and then it like turns out like you were just translating like Carlin and Seinfeld bits into your local language.
What?
Oh man.
Yeah, there's been a few. There's been a few like that, and they got busted years later because YouTube existed and people would watch those like classic routines in English and just be like, that's his bit in Italian. What's like?
That's crazy. I mean, Matt, you know, look, I've been guilty of this. Every once in a while, you know, you're ensconced in comedy, you're hearing all these jokes, and every once in a while you're on stage and you'll segue. And then you'll say something, you go, wait a minute, where did I hear that? And then you realize, oh my God, that is not my line. You know, and like,
yeah, that was a constant worry. I think in any creative field, you're always worried that, like, did I come up with that originally, or did I, like, at any level? Like, Paul McCartney apparently spent days after he woke up with the melody. I think it was for Yesterday. Just checking with everyone he knew. Like, is this something? Is this a tune that other people have done? So yeah, you're constantly worried about like those little things creeping in, but I'm talking about like entire routines. That's like crazy. Word for word.
I will tell you this. I'm not going to say who it is, but you will definitely know who it is because they've become insanely popular off of a podcast. But this gentleman who I've always gotten along with, we're cool now and everything. But a while back, I want to say maybe 08, around 08 or something. I saw him on TV do word for word a line that I did. And it's just very specific. It's not like, hey, dating's crazy. It was a very...
Wait, first off, dating must have been crazy for Claude Stewart if that's how he reacted when he went on dates.
Really, but it was like, and I didn't even see it right away. My friend goes, dude, I recorded it. Watch this. I was like, okay. And I had his number, called him up, and I said, hey, man, just so you know, I do the same thing. And I wouldn't go in, how dare you? I just said, I do the same line, blah, blah, blah. And I swear to God, the reaction was, man, well, Claude, you've been doing comedy longer than me. Do you mind if I just do it on the road and I won't do it in town? That was, and so I just calmly said, it's weird. I have no patience with little shit, but with big things, I'm very calm. And I go, buddy, you can do it, but I'm telling you, we work the same clubs, and the owner might go, hey, that's Claude Stewart show. That I just left it as that, But, now I'm about to do Texas for 4 nights for free potato chips, and he's selling out theaters. So, maybe it doesn't matter at this point.
I saw a bit of mine done on an Amazon Prime show this year. I'm not going to mention which show. And then I looked at the writing staff, and sure enough, of course, there were stand-ups on the staff. So I think a lot of the times, I'm not going to say that any of these people lifted my material intentionally, but I think subconsciously, I think it just falls into, they're pitching in the room, and it's like, oh, and then there's just like blah, 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 blah. I think I remember I was in a room once and this guy did this, blah, blah, blah. And you don't even remember that wasn't there. That wasn't like a bit. Yeah. They just think it was an experience they had type of a thing. They don't even remember that it was somebody doing a bit.
Then there's the argument, is someone saying it to their roommate in an Amazon Prime show different than Majid saying his own joke on stage, And I don't know. That's open for debate. I'd have to see.
I mean, it was so specific, and the references were so specific. It was really hard.
If it's someone like repeating it to their work, like their office mates, then that's different. But I think on a professionally written thing that's being broadcast, I think that is dodgy. But it is hard explaining that as well to lay people. Like there's a gig I did years ago it was on the south coast of England. And it used to be like hosted by the guy who ran the bar. He'd hosted himself, and one day he wasn't. I did it one week, he wasn't there, and his friend did it stepped in, and his friend opened with like 3 of my friend's material. Oh, like it was just like word for word their bits, and then he gets the first act on, and he comes off, and I'm like, hey, just like that's this guy's bit, that's this guy's bit. You can't really do that. And he said, I own the second biggest estate agency in Bournemouth. And that was his response. Like, oh, well, then I stand corrected. Okay.
Yeah. Did you steal that too?
Oh my gosh! Wow, that is. I mean, the biggest instance I ever had of it is just. I also will, I can also say sometimes it's based on situations too. Like I had first time I ever did stand-up comedy was at a talent show during lunchtime in high school. That's a great decision. And I did like 5 minutes, and it did not go went as well as you would think a 16-year-old doing stand-up comedy in the high school cafeteria would go at lunch. And then this other guy follows me, and he does like 20 minutes and just crushes. He had like full-on act outs, like these characters, like callbacks, like literally was getting like an applause break. And I came out here, I was like, wow, and I had no idea that your family life was so crazy. He's like, oh no, that was not mine. That was from Louis Anderson's special. Like he never told the audience this. But again, you can plead ignorance because you're 16-year-old kid type of a thing. He's looking at it the same thing as like doing a monologue, in theater class. Like, you know, he's like, this is a piece from blah, blah, blah. And instead like this is a piece from
and I think when you're 15, 16, that's kind of like, that's different. That's and also it's to an audience of school kids.
Yeah.
Like it's different from doing it in a professional club where the other people you're introducing are, in one case, housemates with a person whose joke you've stolen.
Well, crazy.
Well, he did become the staff writer on that Amazon show, but other than that, you know, I mean,
you mentioned Louis. You know, Louis, rest in peace. He was on the show that I write on, and he was very professional, very nice. And it's just a funny, weird come together story, real quick. So Mike knows this. I used to work on Dennis Miller's show, his HBO show. Like when I first moved out here, I met one of the writers. I was basically an intern, then I was assistant script coordinator, but I got to watch him write, which is awesome because he's very specific. You know, he would change one verb and make the joke 5 times better. The reason I'm saying this, Jon Stewart was in the building next door and he was hosting Tom Schneider. I don't know if you remember, Tom Schneider had a late night show and he was subbing for him. So I was outside and I'd just seen his HBO specials. Oh my God, John, that was awesome. And he was very humble. He was like, thanks. But you know what? I did a lot of topical stuff. I mean, you know, next year, you're not going to be as impressed. And I was like, well, no, it was really funny. And then Louis comes out. Louis had just done Politically Correct with Bill Maher. And he walks out and, John, you were great. I just saw that in there. And then he looks at me and gives me he goes, kind of looks me up and down and goes, and then walks off. And, you know,
Hey, Chris, can you hear me? Hello? Chris, are you frozen? Hello? Okay. Let's see what's going on here. Chris, can you hear me? Hey guys, this is Michael Magid. We are about to start with Comedy in English. We're having some technical difficulties right here on Chris's part, but we will be starting any second right now. Let's see. Chris, can you hear me? Hello? You are frozen. Okay. Oh, he's trying again. He is trying again. Let's see. Let's see if he's able to connect to the audio right here. Guys, while we're waiting for Chris James, welcome to Comedy in English. I am Michael Magid. I will be your host today. We're going to get started in a couple minutes right here. First up, in the comment section, guys, on all the different platforms, shout out to KO Comedy and Comedy Hub. Put where you're watching the show from. Please let us know where you're watching the show from. Also, these podcasts will be going out starting in early 2026. Shout out to all you guys who've been joining all these live streams while we've been recording. Let's see if Chris can hear us now. And Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
There you are. Look at that. Look at that. Technology. We made it happen. We made it happen. All right, let's are you good to go?
I am good to go.
All right, fantastic. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Comedy in English, everybody. I am Michael Magid. I will be your host through this glorious, glorious journey through international comedy. Shout out to all you guys watching on KO Comedy and Comedy Hub. Make sure you're subscribing to Comedy Hub, guys. Amazing podcasts, amazing comedy shows online all week long. For some of you guys who don't know, we used to have a show at HI Santa Monica called Comedy in English, which is obviously not ironic in any way whatsoever, that this show is also called Comedy in English. That is the laziness of me having these backdrops still available. And one person who spent a lot of time at CIE, as we used to like to call it, is the one and only Chris James. You might know him from America's Got Talent and his one-man show, which is about to premiere over in Astoria, I think it is. The one and only Chris James. What's up, dude?
Hi, man. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You know, the funnest thing about this, Chris, is that I'm looking at you right here, and you are probably the most well-dressed man who has ever been on Comedy in English, whether that's in the virtual space or in the in-person space. Dude, I think there was a show once that you actually showed up in a full suit.
You know, and I think that was
My
probably.
mum would be proud.
I mean, look, the thing was is that like you literally showed up. I think there were maybe like 3 or 4 shows, and you show up and people are just like, "Oh, I think this guy works here. I think he's like some sort of like an executive at Hosteling International. We better be on our best behavior." People are coming up to you asking about membership discounts. It was definitely a different experience. So, Chris, for some people out there who might not be familiar with you and your comedy, why don't you kind of just kind of break down kind of your journey in regards to comedy in English and, you know, your journey to the United States and all that?
So basically, I used to be a fashion model from the age of 18. And I did it originally to get out of debt because a friend of mine said I could make money, good money doing it and get out of debt. And then I didn't really think that I would be able to do that. But somehow, some miracle, I was able to get out of debt. And then I did it for many years. And then I really wanted to go and do some acting because usually with models, they try and get you into acting. And I don't know, I think maybe I was a horrid actor because every time I got an audition, I didn't get any jobs. And I was like, they need to just see me without an audition, like do my characters. And so a friend of mine was like, so I started doing poetry, character poetry. And a comedian friend of mine went to go and watch me. And he said, "You're a horrid poet, but your poems are funny. Why don't you just do stand up?"
Wait,
And
hold
then
on. You
that's
were
kinda
doing
how
like
I began my
you thought that poetry was the link between modeling and worldwide movie stardom. That was an interesting choice right there. Like, because
I was trying to be like original. I was like, you know what? They'll get me. I'll do these character poetry, kind of like Shakespeare, and I'll get discovered. I'll do a one-person show and do these poetry, but it's gonna be like character poetry. And my friend was like, "Chris, this is not it."
so how long did you go through the poetry before you decided, you know what, maybe my favorite thing about that though is that like there's really not that much of a difference between an open mic for poetry and an open mic for comedy. It's basically just people staring at each other the entire time. So
yeah, well, you know, the poems were humorous and people were laughing, but even poets said to me, "This is not poetry." He said, "I don't know what it is. It's funny, but it's not poetry." And I was like, okay. But I thought it rhymed. But yeah, so
do you remember any of them?
The poets didn't want me to do poetry and call it poetry. And my friend, who's a comedian, did not want me to do poetry and try to get me to stand up.
Is it like this in the poetry community, like with stand-up comedy? And for those of you guys who are, you know, outside of the stand-up community, this might be a little bit of inside baseball, which is a very inside baseball reference here in the United States. But that open mics for stand-up comedy, very much so, are people who are waiting to get up on stage. And a lot of the times, in order to have an audience that's not just people waiting to get on stage, they have to bring people from their own community, people that they know. So were your poetry reads just a bunch of models in the crowd?
No, I didn't tell anybody really.
Oh.
It's always in strangers. Usually it was strangers. And sometimes I might do them. Like I used to kind of do this kind of little acts. They're like little poetry acts, but it wasn't like so much poetry. It was more like characters. And I'd write them and I'd perform it at parties and stuff. They're like, "Chris, go on, do what you do those little character things." So I'd go and tell a story or whatever, but it wasn't like a stand-up thing. It was more like a storytelling, but they're very short sonnets or short sketches I'd do.
The way you said sonnet made just me feel like I was at the Renaissance fair. Like that was just way too cultured. Way too cultured for stand-up comedy. But you know, one of the interesting things about that, Chris, is that a lot of people, you know, because they hear, you know, your accent and they just assume that, you know, that you started stand-up comedy in the UK. I think the majority of comedians that you probably meet in the United States go, "Oh, how long were you doing stand-up in the UK before you migrated over here?" As that is a common, you know, occurrence. A lot of people do start over in Europe and come over here, but you actually started in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, LA, Los Angeles first, and then New York for many years. And yeah, it's been a fun ride. And I did go to London and do some stand up as well when I was there. I went to go and visit there. I was still pretty new, but I still went and did some stuff for about maybe 6 months while I was staying with my uncle. And it was fun. Yeah.
So do you feel that, because one of the things that we always love to talk about on this show is, the differences in regards to international comedy, regardless of who you're playing, and your previous experiences, right? So you started out stand-up comedy in the United States. However, you obviously you didn't live your entire life in the United States. So did that bring you a different perspective on stand-up when you started here? And then vice versa, did you kind of feel like an outsider doing stand-up comedy overseas because that wasn't your natural comedy environment?
I guess not really. Well, I guess maybe the style, because I didn't know too many when I was out there. I didn't see too many British stand-ups doing a lot of storytelling, character style storytelling. And so I didn't see a lot of that. Not that there isn't, there probably is, but when I was there, I didn't see a lot of that performance-wise. So stylistically, I think I'm more influenced here from that side of things, from a performance side of things. But as far as relatability and as far as the type of stories I tell, yeah, it's very relatable, because I was able to even go to South Africa and it was the same. I was like, oh, because I lived in South Africa for a bit and I was modeling out there. And as I was transitioning into stand-up, I was still trying to, I was still modeling, but I was kind of on my way out by that time.
Yeah.
And my visa got stuck in South Africa and the agency wasn't able to pay me. So I had to start doing stand-up to kind of get paid cash in South Africa.
Wait, what? So this is the craziest thing about that is you made it sound like you were basically stuck there. You could not get back. And in order to fend for yourself, you had to go to the last resort, which is stand-up comedy to get,
literally,
to get cash.
because the agency, they had an agency apartment, which they control. So they said, look, we'll let you stay in the apartment for free. Well, not for free, but we'll put it on your account, but we can't pay you cash because your visa's been held up. And I was like, well, I'm stuck because they've gone on strike, so I wouldn't be able to get my passport. I wouldn't even leave the country. So my friend, I was really stressed out, and my friend that was staying in the model accommodation, he was like, you do comedy, don't you? I goes, yeah. He goes, maybe I should take you to the open mic. Maybe they can get you some work. And I'm like, all right, I'll give it a try. And I did an open mic and I did really well. And there was a headliner that was there at the end. And he said, hey man, have you performed at any of the venues out here? And I was like, no. He goes, I'd like to take you on the road with me. And he took me on the road with him.
What?
And I was on the road with him for like a year, and he had me headline shows as well, because he was a producer as well. So I did that for like a whole year in South Africa.
Why would you come back here? It sounds like you had this burgeoning career going on in South Africa. That's unreal.
Well, it's crazy. So at the time, there was a friend of mine who I met in Chicago at it was like an audition for Zanies in Chicago. And he just started managing comedians at that time. Him and his brother was his brother, Asif.
Of course, yeah.
So he was doing the audition with me to try and get into the club.
Wait, hold on. Asif was doing the audition at Zanies with you?
Yeah, it was me, Hannibal Buress, and I think there was like another two comics. We were auditioning for Zanies. And it was years ago. And so I, after the show, Mohammed and Asif come up to me and say, hey man, really like your stuff. I said, yeah, I like your stuff. And we hang out in Starbucks, and they were like, we really want to come to LA and we want to really do the stand-up comedy and do movies and stuff. And I was like, these guys are ambitious.
Little did you know that they would literally be, I don't know, managing some of the biggest names in the world and then also becoming a superstar comedian
crazy
themselves.
When I look back on it. And
Shout out to
those.
those guys, though, man. I mean, talk about like the most humble people. And for those of you guys who don't know who we're speaking about, we're speaking about two brothers, Asif Ali and Mo Ali, who both work on different sides of the business right here, but have been like rocketing up, the charts in regards to their own success, but still remain the most humble people. I mean, I was literally texting with Asif last week, and I was like, dude, there was no way, like, he would perform at HI Santa Monica, and then he'd be like doing a theater like 10 minutes earlier, and he's like, hey, do you mind if I just stop by just hang out? And like, instead of like, how like a lot of big names, Chris would be like, hey, you need to get them on stage right away or whatever. He would just walk in, he's like, oh, I'm cool, man, just whenever. And it's like, what the heck? He's like, I'll have some chips, just good people.
Yeah, very cool. Like, top best friends, man. So that's where I first met them. And so I was in South Africa. After that, I was in South Africa for, I hadn't seen them for a while, and I was already been maybe a year and a half in South Africa. And by that time, I think it may have been a bit longer, I'd been in South Africa. And then they're in LA, and he had signed with another management company, and they had a comedy division. And he was like, hey, man, if you want to come back to America, I might be able to help you and get you a college agent, and you can do college jobs out here, like, and the money would be really good. And I was like, sure. So I just left South Africa, left my modeling and my little stand-up little gigs, and
left your like TV special that you had shot in Johannesburg, like all of that stuff that was going on, right?
Well, it's funny. It's like at the time I wasn't spending any money, because all the money that I was making from stand-up, I was just using that, and then all the money from modeling, I was pocketing it. So it was really working out. But then at the same time, I was like, I don't want to be in South Africa. It's not. I want to go back. I miss my family. I had family in America.
Yeah.
So I was like, and who knows? I mean, they had acting agents and stuff like that. So there was like opportunity for me to get acting stuff and be rep by a good management company. So I was like, all right. So I came back, did a showcase at the Improv, and got signed with them. So
wait,
yeah,
you showcased again for them?
Yeah. So basically, Mo's gonna hate me for telling you this, but he basically said, look, there's one spot left, and I can just say I heard about you. I won't tell him you're my friend.
Oh my!
He goes, but you got to do well. You got to really do well.
Yeah, because what if you had tanked that whole thing? He's like, looks like I'm back at Starbucks. Looks like I'm back doing meetings at Starbucks right here. No, but of course it was going to work out, right? Because that's the way these stories go, right? It always works out.
Yeah, he was like, they were like, how'd you know him? I saw him do stand up somewhere, and he was really good. You got to have him on the showcase, and that's kind of how he did. He didn't let them know that he met me like a few years ago.
He's like, I was on a layover in South Africa at the airport, and there was a guy that needed cash because his modeling gig couldn't pay him at the time, so he was just doing street performance at the airport. He just had a mic with him over by the Hudson News, and was just doing some stand-up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Now all these crazy stories that you talk about, Chris. I mean, I think the really cool thing is that a lot of people don't understand that a lot of stand-up comedy comes from lived experiences, and the more you travel, the more lived experiences you're going to have. And I think one of the cool things about HI Santa Monica, when we used to run the Comedy in English show there, is that the audience would share their lived experiences with you, and it would kind of, for me, I don't know about for you, but it would make my brain start thinking about like those experiences in myself and go, oh, there's something funny here. I totally forgot about that. Did that ever happen to you?
Yeah. Sometimes you'll get talking to the audience, and it does jog a memory for you to like, oh, I can, oh wow, that I didn't, because sometimes there's things that happen to us we don't think they're funny until you tell other people, and they're like, oh, that's so funny, that's really interesting. You're like, really? But you just take it for granted, or you're so close to it. Sometimes you don't see the funny in it, and then that's when you start working on it. So sometimes I've had bits like that where I wasn't really aware that anyone else would be interested in it or think it was particularly funny or even relatable. You don't realize how many life stories or mini stories we have throughout our life that we just kind of put away somewhere and tuck.
I mean, I think also sometimes, in regards to that, and this is a good segue into talking about, your one person show here, is that a lot of times the trauma is so deep in regards to a situation or an experience that we had there. We're not ready yet to mind that funny, or we've put it so far behind us that we haven't even thought about the humor of those situations because we're so focused on the pain of the experience,
Yes. Sometimes we're either, like I say, too close to it, or we're still trying to get over it sometimes. So it's a tricky thing if you're kind of in between there's a little gray area where you might be still a bit too attached to it, and so you may have tried it and then it didn't work. Then you think it's not funny, but it's really because the audience can read in your face that you're not over it or you're not okay.
But that's the thing is that I've had this happen to me in regards to like doing crowd work, and then I start a conversation with somebody and it jars a memory or whatever, and I tell them that in the moment, and their reaction is very different than how I felt about it because they're not biased towards it because it wasn't their experience, and now all of a sudden we're sharing this true human experience, and I start recognizing like, oh, it might even be cathartic for me to start talking about this, So why don't you kind of talk a little bit about, your one person show, because obviously it's very personal. It has some very dark elements to it. But there's also a lot of humor there.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna probably do a kind of thing about it. Basically, it's about romance scams. So my mum was a victim and still is a victim of romance scams. And there's so many like catfishing online, especially with the AI, you kind of don't know what's real and what's not. And especially if you're older and you don't really much of a tech person, that's you're vulnerable. There's so many scams on the internet, and they destroy people's lives. They destroy whole families' lives. And so, yeah, that's kind of about what that's like, and also how relatable, how people judge people. We all do it. We all judge someone who's been conned, and sometimes we laugh at them, especially not big cons, but sometimes it's like, oh god, how could you fall for that one?
Yeah.
I mean, people laughed at me. I got scammed when I was a teenager. I got scammed. That's how I got into modeling.
Yeah, luckily it ended up being a legitimate modeling as opposed to like, yeah, I got scammed, and that's how I got into modeling, quote unquote. So luckily you did not end up in a trunk somewhere in some foreign land. It could have gone a lot darker. But what's interesting about that is when you're talking about the scamming thing is that it's harder to get away with it nowadays, but yet at the same time it's easier to get scammed, if that makes any sort of sense. It's that there's so many firewalls now, and there's so many people are so savvy to scams, but also the scammers have gotten more sophisticated to the point that I almost got scammed a couple weeks ago, and then and because the email looked legitimate, everything looked legitimate, and it wasn't until the person started texting me that I was like, something is off here. And I started Googling, and I put in the information of, hey, this is the type of copy that I got. And I had all these stories that came up from different people with variations of the same story. So, and it's like, I consider myself relatively tech savvy. I'm not an elderly person, who's not familiar with technology. So if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah. And like I say, the shame that's around it, there's a lot of shame around it. So a lot of these, even when you do report these cases, a lot of the times you can't catch these people because they're not even in the country.
Yep.
And there's certain boundaries where you can't there's certain laws, that international laws, that you can't kind of reach those people legally. Even once it's that wire has gone out of the country, you're done.
Well, we're changing the movement now. We're changing the movement now, Chris, right here on Comedy in English right now. This is the revolution right now. We can get to them right now. In fact, I'm expecting them to Zoom bomb us right now as we speak, and we are going to confront these anonymous faces. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, listen, if you are, to all the viewers out there, if you're someone who's been scammed, or you're looking to try and get payback or find an organization, and let's collaborate, man, because it needs to be out there, because there's so many. They're making billions of dollars. It's a big industry.
Wait, what? I thought it was just like I thought it was
huge.
I'm just picturing like a 14-year-old boy in like some random country messing around. Like, I didn't realize that these were like full on like operations. That's crazy.
It's a full on, and it's a team of them. It's not just one or two people. It's like they set up in a house, and there's like a team of them, and they play different characters. In fact, they're kind of like actors. They're like psychologists, actors. That's kind of the level of sophistication and talent.
Has anyone done a documentary about that world? Because that could be something that interesting for you to explore, Chris.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of them on Netflix. Actually, there's a couple of documentaries on Netflix, and that's kind of how I in my research, because I was trying to figure out this can't be just one person that's falling for this. And then I realized, it's a big deal. A friend of mine said that the CIA rounded up a bunch of cartels, romance scam cartels.
What?
They call them sweetheart scams in Ghana.
Wow. Do you remember a few years back there was the college football player that was scammed, Manti Te'o?
No.
Yeah, he was like a Heisman Trophy finalist. Like, he was like a high level player, and he was completely scammed and catfished. So.
Yeah, it's. I have other members of my family. So I only found out like a week ago that my dad had been scammed for like, and it's not in my act, but he got scammed for what, $20,000.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a young lady in the Philippines.
What? Oh my gosh.
He was paying for her college. That's what
gosh.
She was meant to come and visit him. She never came and visited him, but she got that college money.
Well, you know what's interesting too is that there's other types of scams too that are not just illegitimate, but there's actually legitimate scams in regards to they find legal loopholes, and they're able to scam people that way. In regards to like, legally they're entitled to yada yada, or you legally, if you read the fine print, blah blah blah, and they didn't do anything illegal. This was on your own volition that you did this, or all that sort of stuff, which is crazy.
Oh yeah,
like I've had that. I've gone to the FBI, and I've gone to different police in regards to those types of situations in the past. And yeah, there's like nothing they can do about it because you did it at your own volition.
But here's the thing, it's with the romance scam, if you're in love with somebody and you're still just giving them money, and everybody around you is like, no, you're being ripped off, there's nothing you can do.
I mean, how does somebody fall in love? And again, obviously I don't want to, dig deep into your show or into regards to, what you're going to be sharing and everything. But like, the fact that that somebody's willing to make such an strong emotional connection without physically meeting somebody in person, is a whole thing in its own in regards to how we communicate and socialize as a species now.
Yeah, see, there's two things, and you realize this during COVID. During COVID, a lot of people were they spent a lot of time isolated, and they spent a lot of time on their computers. And you see how people got really emotionally warped and affected around that time with politics, the vaccines, people like getting really emotional. Like, they didn't really have much. It was so, the internet can be so intimate, and it's so easy to someone who's lonely, especially if you're old, lonely,
Mm-hmm.
and you just get messaging someone for a minute and you find out where their vulnerabilities are. Like I say, they're like therapists. They know how to manipulate someone's pains. If someone's a widower, they haven't really gone through therapy, they haven't got over the loss, that person now becomes the confidant, because they're cut off from society. They don't speak to their kids anymore. They don't have any friends. They don't have anyone they can really confide in. But this stranger who's filling their heads with positivity and giving them a chance to even live their life again. And I would even say healing them on some level and giving them hope. Now it's a whole thing. Now I'm just throwing in the flowers. Oh, I'm wealthy. We'll live in this fancy so and so together. I love you so much, and da da da. And you do this every day and they take their time. These scams can go on for 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
Longer. That's why they make so much money.
That's
make
unreal.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes.
That's unreal. But you've brought up a really good point in regards to the loneliness epidemic. And I think, kind of, circling back to international travel and international comedy and everything like that. One of the cool things that I always loved experiencing, at Comedy in English, is that a lot of times there would be people that were traveling by themselves, and they would come to the comedy show. And the reason that they were staying at HI, for instance, is because they wanted community, because they were traveling on their own. And I think that that's really cool that those experiences are available to people, because it can be very lonely, traveling on your own, living on your own. And a lot of those times, that's where either dark thoughts, or you can get into dark situations online, because that's the only outlet for communication that you have available to you.
Yeah, and so much stuff is thrown at you online, and you start scrolling, and then you have someone who takes your fancy. Somehow someone gives you a compliment, someone's saying nice things to you. Then you're just like, oh, this is nice. You're an old person. You don't, and it's someone who's maybe attractive. They usually find, it's like men and women. They just find people 50 and above usually, who are single. They also have an archetype, 50 and above, single, and just they kind of like they know who their targets are. And once they've got their targets, their demographic, they pile it on. They got their script ready too. They got a script that's tried, proven, and tested.
So
it's pretty incredible.
I got a question for
these people are.
Speaking of that, and I do want to kind of get back onto the international tip here, but I do want to ask you in regards to like your characters. You're in your one person show. How much is it character driven, and how much of it is I don't want to say monologue heavy, but based on just sharing your own personal experiences.
So it's combined with so it's pretty much character driven, but it's also the narrative. It mirrors both me and my mum on how we were both vulnerable, and both how we both judge, and how we both aspire to dream. And we have the commonalities. The only difference between the commonalities between me and my mum is I had a chance to get over mine because I was scammed young. I wasn't scammed for as much money. I wasn't in a situation where I was super, super vulnerable, like my mum. So, and it's happened so late in her years. So how do you recover from that when you're, in your late 70s, 80s? As a young person, 17, you've got the whole world ahead of you still. You've got time that's when you do all your slipping and falling. But you can't slipping and falling when you're 80 is a lot. And especially with a lot of 80-year-olds, they have retirement, they have funds, they have life savings.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot more at stake to lose.
I mean, I think you brought up a really good point, because there is that lack of ability to reaccumulate the wealth that was gained. There's less time and also less opportunities. When you're 18 years old, you can become a worldwide modeling sensation. Just the typical ways, the typical ways that people get out of debt. I want to see a commercial. I want to see like a mock commercial. You know how because I go out for a reasonable amount of commercials, and a lot of times they're finance ones, and they're always about getting out of debt, consolidating debt, those sorts of things. I would just love to see you as a spokesperson for one, and you're just sharing, the ways to get out, your modeling solution to getting out of debt. And like the commercials, just like two people are like moving out of their home because they can't afford the mortgage anymore. And you look at the wife and go, look, I've got a simple solution: modeling. And like the husband just looks at you like, what the fuck? Like, is he hitting on my wife? What's going on here? It's like, no, I think your wife could just do some modeling. He's like, what kind of modeling are you referring to? Because it definitely would have probably a creepy connotation to it. You're
people,
back.
I mean, there's a lot of scams within modeling, so people think that's a scam too.
Mm-hmm. Oh well, I mean, I think most people when they get an email or a message in regards to modeling or talent search or singing or anything like that, it's an immediate red flag that this is a scam. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. People are literally immediately thinking that. When I get an email and someone goes, hey, we were blah, 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 and we're looking for blah, blah, blah talent, I'm like, scam. You are not. No, this is not.
And especially when they say all types of models.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. No experience. We take all sorts, all
4
sizes,
fingers, 5 fingers.
looks,
it doesn't matter.
all
Whatever.
Inclusive. Doesn't matter what you look like. We'll take you.
Oh my gosh. What's so funny is like I've been doing a lot of auditions lately, and I have a torn tendon and a broken finger right now. I don't know if you can see right here a little bit.
Oh yeah, you got a little brace.
Yeah, got the little
I
splint
was
on.
looking at that, yeah.
Well, the thing is that like I have to take it off before I do these self tapes because like
you're a hand model.
No, I'm not a hand model. No, I'm not a hand model. That would be amazing. My hands are not good enough to be a hand model. Hands. Are you kidding me? Look at this one. This one bends like that. Look how bent that thing is. Look at this one. This is all goalkeeping. Yeah, my fingers are not.
Goalkeeper.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, they're all messed up. Look at that. If anybody here is at any of the casting studios or my reps, this is not true. This is all CGI. That's not what it looks like at all. It looks like this hand. Looks like this hand, right? Don't worry about my right hand, guys. Don't worry about. Oh, my thing that always freaks me out is with like they always say hands and like show your hands or whatever, because I'm like, I feel like the second I show my hands, they're gonna be like, next. They're like, he was great.
I do that too.
Just the
and
hands.
See, I got the calluses.
Oh, that's nothing.
I do it really quickly. You don't see it, but if I have to do that, you can see the little callus from the
Yeah,
weight
I just
training.
go.
So I just do that quickly and just do that.
They always say slowly. I'm
Because my
almost
back of my
convinced that I
hands-
haven't gotten a call back whenever I've had to show my hands, because they look at my hands and they go, "Those are gruesome. What has he been doing?" I'm like, "He's been goalkeeping his entire life. That's what he's been doing." And they're like, "That I don't know what that means. That sounds like he's
Do you still play?
life coach or something." What?
Do you still go goalkeep? Do you still
Yeah,
play?
I have a championship game this weekend that I may play with this broken finger and torn tendon. If you're my doctor, you didn't hear that either. If you're my doctor or physical therapist, like, you did not hear that either. It's the championship game, but I've been out now for 5 weeks. This happened on November 2nd, so I haven't been playing since then. But these others, they never reset properly after I injured them. I just kept playing. And that was just the competitive nature in me, and also just trying to gain contracts. And I was younger and stupid and didn't realize how bad the injuries were. Wow, we have totally sidetracked on a tangent here. We've been talking about my hands.
Do like a pro football player.
Please.
Semi-pro.
Oh, please. Yeah, I mean, little bit, but it's not about me. It's about you today, Chris. So let's get. You're a Hull fan, right?
Sorry?
You're a Hull fan, right? You're a Hull supporter, right?
Wholesome?
Hull supporter, right? Aren't you a Hull supporter?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm Watford.
You're
from Watford.
Watford. Oh, okay. You're Watford. Okay. For some reason, I thought it was Hull. Oh, okay. Matt Kirshen is Watford as well. Do you know Matt? Do you know Matt Kirshen?
Huh?
Do you know Matt Kirshen?
Matt Gershon?
Matt Kirshen.
He's from Watford?
I don't know if he's from.
Oh,
Watford,
Matt
but
Kirshen.
he's
He's from Watford. I think he's from Watford, isn't he?
he might
a
be.
comedian.
He's a Watford supporter. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he might be from Watford too.
Wow. Okay. Well, now it makes a lot of sense. I just thought he
Because
was
usually people don't English. I don't know too many English fans that like, you know what, I'm gonna be a Watford supporter if they're not from Watford.
I mean, it's like it's a very hipster type of decision to make, but a lot of times it could be a family connection. Family's
Yeah,
from there.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll have to ask him when I see him if he's
So-
from Watford.
I want to ask you, Chris, as we start, getting back on the topic here, you did a lot of shows at HI Santa Monica, and you hosted a lot of shows at HI Santa Monica. And for those of you guys who don't know what we're referring to, we're talking about that comedy and English show. And there were people from all over the world at these shows. There could be literally somebody from Kazakhstan sitting next to somebody from Singapore, sitting next to somebody from, Madagascar, so it just ran the gamut, What did you feel benefited you by hosting those shows, over and over again, in regards to when you started touring again, when you started, doing other shows, that sort of thing?
I started realizing probably doing those shows. So there's so many different factors. Most comedy shows, you have people from pretty much the same area, at least the same country. And so you realize that everybody's point of view is very different. So if you're coming from a global perspective, I think you as a comedian, you start being aware of a global perspective as opposed to a national perspective or a local town perspective. And when you think about a global perspective, you start thinking, well, how can I connect to these people on a human level? Because there's so many things that can separate us just based on language and culture and stuff. But what's something that we have in common? And the thing that you find most common are certain things like love and relationships and shame and growing up and dreams and disappointment. These things are universal.
Scamming.
So you can connect on a human level on one's failures. We can all relate on that.
Yeah.
So when you do a show, you got something good and special. is when you can bring people from all corners of the world and be like, we feel you. That way that's the difference between doing something on an international level and doing something that only connects on a local level.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because I think in regards to comedies, somebody said this years ago, as I said, you can make anything relatable, if you find out what are you really trying to say. Is it really about that reference? Is it really about that grocery store? Is it really about that, so and so date, or is it about what you're trying to say through this story, through this bit? And when you deconstruct it like that, you go, oh, wow, okay, I just have to make sure that I convey it in a way that these people know what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to get at. And then you can make anything relatable, I think.
But also people connect to emotions.
Yes.
If I can say a joke and it can be just very well written and it could be funny and there could be a surprise, because a lot of the jokes is about surprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not expected. But if you put that with emotion, and people really connect to emotion, especially if they're not understanding the language very well,
mm-hmm.
and they know that they can read what you're going through, that engages them. It gives it some weight, it gives it some importance. Because one thing for me, if people aren't laughing, that's not the worst thing that can happen to me. If they're not laughing and then they're just disinterested. I remember one cruise ship I did, there was a woman in the front row knitting. There was something about that. There was something about that did something to my soul. I was like, she's knitting in the front row.
Oh
she's
my gosh.
Literally knitting. I'm like, do you know that I'm performing? And she goes, yes.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
unreal.
So if you're not interesting, that's my worst insult.
I mean,
And so
yeah.
And I think when you're really connected to what you're talking about, and when you're really connected to the audience, then I think that's half the battle. And then all the other stuff, the writing and stuff, that's just going to enhance everything that you've technically done with your jokes.
I think that's the same thing with any type of performance. Like if you're disconnected from the work, from the performance, from the material that you're sharing, from the experience that you're sharing, the audience is going to recognize that, whether you're a musician or an actor or a comedian or a poet. They're going to feed off of that, and they're also going to be able to recognize how authentic something is versus conceptual something is. I tend to, for lack of a better term, gravitate towards things that are, connected in some level of truth. Now, obviously, embellishment is part of the experience, but there has to be a kernel of truth there in order for there to be any sort of like organic response, in my opinion. Otherwise, it's just concept. Otherwise, it's just an idea, and it's just never going to get to that same level. So I love what you said in regards to just how, just from your own emotions, just from your own way that you're processing things, people can pick that up. I think we just lost Chris right there. That's how disinterested he was in what I was saying right there. Is that he did his equivalent of the online knitting experience. He just turned it off right there. What's funny though is, in regards to like comedy in English, is that a lot of people are afraid of doing online comedy and Zoom comedy and all those sorts of things, or podcasts or whatever. And they go, I don't know, it's just there's so many awkward pauses. I go, yeah, but I've been running an international comedy show with people that English is not their first language for over 10 years. I'm so used to awkward pauses that this is nothing to me. This is just a regular show. Waiting for the audio to hit Chris James's Zoom box so that he hears what I'm saying is the same thing as waiting for somebody to translate it in their head. So
yeah.
You know,
No, it's good. I mean, I mean, shows, you're always going to have challenging shows, no matter at what level you're at in stand up, you're always going to have some shows that are challenging. So it's just, you might as well just get used to it, accept it. You know, there's good and bad, but man, when the good's good, it's really good. When the
yeah.
bad's bad, it's really bad, but it's worth getting through the bad to get to the good, because the good is so good.
And I'll say this to any, you know, young comedians, you know, listening to this, and we're talking about, you know, international comedy versus regular, you know, but just as regional comedy or anything like that. My advice to you is that don't try to get laughs. Just share your experience and let the experience speak for itself. Let the writing speak for itself. Let the emotions speak for itself. Because, like Chris says, you know, they're going to have good and bad shows, and you're going to have shows where people are really laughing. You're going to have shows where people are very quiet, but it doesn't mean that one show was quote unquote bad or one show was quote unquote good. It just means that the energy was just different. And as long as they enjoyed the experience, that's what matters. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think yeah, the experience for me, for sure. I've had shows where people aren't they're not big laughers, and I thought that I didn't do very well, and they'd be like, "That was an amazing show," and you're like, "Wow, really?" Yeah, it was amazing. I had a fun time. That was so good. I just wanted to let you know that. I was like, "Oh wow." And sometimes it is there. There is such a thing as big laughers and people that aren't big laughers, and obviously we aim for the big laughs. That's our job. But but at the same time, they say never let a good show a good show get to your head, and never let a bad show get to your heart.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I think that's the saying. Yeah,
works for me. It works for me. I mean, it sounds very very profound. So yeah, I'll go with that. Chris.
Yeah, well, do you know how I found I got that saying? There was a guy. I had bombed at this show in South Africa, and there was a guy. He was like the what was he? He was like the godfather of comedy in. I wish I could remember his name. He's an old dude, and he was killing. Every time I saw him, he killed. And I was like, "Do you ever bomb?" Because I was frustrated. Like, this guy, he's always killing, no matter what the audience, he's always destroying. I says, "Have you ever bombed?" He goes, "Yeah." And then he told me that saying.
Wow.
I said, "Of course I've bombed." He said, "I still bomb." I said, "Well, I've never seen you." He goes, "Oh well."
But
yeah, my bad.
And also when you get to a certain level too, again, it's all subjective, like what you consider bombing versus what somebody else considers bombing, type of thing. It's like, oh man, I only got 2 applause breaks on that set. I bombed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Because it's all about your own perception of the moment.
For sure.
And then there's people who are delusional the other direction. They think they've always had a great set.
Oh, there's a lot of those. I think they call it Dumbo ears, where these guys, they don't realize that they're not doing well, but they still got that fake confidence. See, I crushed it. And you're like, man, we're in the same room.
Wow. My favorite,
there's a lot of those.
My favorite performers nowadays are the influencer performers who it's 10 minutes of plugging their content and then 1 minute of bits. And I'm like, I just feel like I just sat through a sponsored ad for your Instagram and TikTok and everything. Like there was literally no subject matter. There was no meat in here whatsoever. It's like you just use this moment to do an advertisement for yourself on stage. It's so common nowadays. It's like I'm like.
Well, you know what it is. So I think that with technology and the way that, I guess, everything's evolved with the internet, I think people now see comedy is very different in they see many different things. They see modeling as many different things. There was no such thing. There used to be a time where people used to be like, oh, the modeling industry is just the 1% of people get to be a model. Now, anyone could be a model. You could be an Instagram model. You know, anyone can be a model, right? And it's the same with the stand-up. It's like they can call themselves a comedian, just doing whatever it is they do, make people laugh on the internet or YouTube, and they've never been on stage before, but they're like, I'm a comedian, you know? So it has many, how can I say? It has many different roles. Now, comedy has many different roles, modeling has many different roles, everything's an all-inclusive, has a different identity now. It's not what it used to be. And so, all right, I get it. You know, you just got to figure out where you fall in that, you know?
That's a really good point. I mean, look, we had a long conversation, you know, a couple weeks ago, you know, when we were chatting, when, you know, I was asking you to come on the show, you know, and then we kind of, you know, we're kind of sharing kind of our own experiences in regards to like how we felt about the industry and where things are going and everything. And I think, you know, you brought up a great point. It's like, if you have certain skill sets, you know, don't let them go to waste just because, you know, you're feeling cynical or jaded, or you feel that, you know, the world has changed or whatever. Is that, you know, because, you know, not everybody has those skill sets. So, you know, it's a boon for you, you know, like you went back to modeling, you know, and I think, you know, you made it pretty clear. You said this, like, this is a skill set that I have, and not a lot of people have this skill set and the experience and have been doing this, you know, long enough, you know, for me to just
Sorry,
remove
it's just
it.
the thing that I do. I need
remove
to
it. Remove it is actually doing myself a disservice. And I think that's really good. But I mean, it's like, dude, I've been seeing some of the work that you've been doing. I mean, it's just, dude, it looks like you never stop modeling, honestly. I mean, it really does. You know, well, it's like a bike.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's like a bike, you know, you just never forget. Plus nowadays that you're a more distinguished gentleman, all the modeling that you do, you look like somebody that I need to respect like a lot.
You know,
it's so much. Excuse me, Mr. James.
Much harder. It's so much, like, back then it was harder to actually model, like, because when I was doing it in the 90s, they just had film, and film was not cheap. So if you did,
get it right.
If you did a horrible pose, they'd be like, "Oh, the photographer will get mad." But now, because you got digital, they're just like, "Move." I've got 1,000 of these shots. You know, there's no wasted shots. So it's more of a. I think it's a more pleasant experience now, in the sense of how you do the job with technology.
I mean, look, I think one thing that I was going to say, you know, in regards to, you know, the different skill sets out there, is that they all kind of feed into each other. I mean, look, I mean, I think that your experiences as a model, you know, led to you having certain skill sets in comedy that a lot of people that don't have. I mean, the physical mannerisms and, you know, being able to present all the physicality, dude. I mean, a lot of comics have to learn that type of stuff, and you just naturally had it because you were so used to moving in different directions and being able to pose in different ways. I don't know anything about modeling, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Like it.
I saw those moves. You got the moves, man. I saw you. I saw you.
I don't know what that is right there. I think that would get me canceled. So I think I'm just going to stop doing that.
Well, you know, do you know what it is? Do you know what I think it might even be, for me, it might be even a cultural thing, because my grandparents from the Caribbean, they're all physical storytellers. They will talk about my aunts and uncles, and they will do impressions of my aunts and uncles. Like my grandmom can do all her sisters, can do her brother, and tell stories. And we'd have like social gatherings, whether it be aunts, cousins, uncles, a lot of relatives, and they'd all be pretty much performing. And I think that's a cultural, for me. I took, when people say, "Oh, who inspired you?" In a lot of my influences, and not just from comedians, but a lot of family members.
Interesting.
I think culturally, I think Caribbean folks, they naturally they tell stories like that. They don't just be like, oh, so this happened to me. They do the characters.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing, but it's very common.
Yeah, they get into the world. They do their little one-person shows for you.
They
just to
really
get the story.
do,
Wow,
and
that's
they're
incredible.
really good at it.
Wow.
I have a cousin, Linos. He was an alcoholic, but man, that guy could, if he wanted to be a stand-up, he could tell a story and just have everyone laughing. And just his everyday mannerisms, the things he'd say, he was just a natural. Like I learned a lot of stuff from him. He's really, really good.
Chris, as we start wrapping up right here, just do you have any stories, any experiences you had at HI Santa Monica doing comedy in English that you want to share? Anything that really stood out to you?
Any stories?
Yeah.
Any stories about in general?
Well, just an experience that you had there, doing the show, running the show, or whatever, that you want to share.
So there was one incident that I had there. So it was I think there was a school of Japanese students, and they came, and I was hosting the show, and I did some time, quite a bit of time up front, and I realized that they were looking and staring at me, but then they kept talking amongst each other, and I was doing my whole thing, and I was going for it, and I was doing my thing, and I was like, they seem interested, and they were kind of just talking to each other, but then I realized they were doing this thing like one was speaking to the other one, and then the next one was there. I says, wait a minute, you guys aren't. Some of you, and then some of them were laughing, but they were laughing in different places. I'm like, what's going on here? I says, you guys are laughing, but you're laughing in the wrong places, some of you. And it just seems a bit weird. And then the one guy puts his hand up. I says, oh, you can just speak. You don't have to put your hand up. He goes, oh, I'm the only one who speaks English. And I had to translate, and then they were passing it on to each other.
Like the game of telephone?
Huh?
Like the game of telephone.
Like what?
Like the game of telephone.
Yes.
Wow. Yes. That's crazy, dude. That's crazy.
I was like, that's why you were laughing. Like I was kind of continuing a story, and they were like, ha, 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 ha. I'm like, wait a minute.
You know what that's like? Is like, you ever be watching TV and it unsyncs, the audio and the video unsync.
Yes.
And you're like, no, I'm like the subtitles are all, like, I watch a lot of shows with captions, like, and a lot of times like the captions will be different than what they're saying at the moment.
Oh,
and the audio's on sync and everything. And I was like, oh, that sounds like what this is. Everything's kind of like out of order. So you just need to sync up that. You need to take that one person that speaks English and just sync them up, and have them saying it literally at the same time. Maybe get them on stage with you and be the interpreter. You do your bit, and then they do the interpret. Like when they do the interviews, they do.
Yeah.
Like that. Now the rest of the crowd would be like, okay, this is a little bit much for us, but that's amazing, dude. Well, Chris, I'm really excited, for your one-person show. It sounds like, it's something that's a match made in heaven, and then something that you really want to share, and it's really personal and close to you. If people want to check it out, where can they find out more information? And
so the show plans,
are there plans to tour?
It's called Mum's Regret. It's I'm just basically preparing it for the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. It's going to be in Queens at the comedy club called QED, and it will be at 8:30 on the 14th of December. So if you go to the QED website and you are in New York City and you wish to get tickets for the show, you can get tickets online. And actually, you can also reach me on my Instagram, which is SR Chris James Comedy. And I think it says Chris's Friends to get a discount code.
Chris's
So,
friends. Wow.
yeah. So
Not only do you get a
if you
discount,
want,
but you also become a friend of Chris James. So that
yeah, follow me on Instagram, and I'll give you the. I think I'll give you the link to the discount code. But yeah, come to the show. It'd be great to see you guys. And yeah, I love live performance. Not that I have anything against Zoom shows, but
like
I'm a
not
much
to,
better live performer than I am a Zoom performer. I can tell you that.
oh my gosh. Well, guys, you definitely check that out. We'll put all that information in the show notes. Obviously, guys, if you want to reach out to us, you can go to Comedy in English at Comedy in English on all social media platforms except for X, which is Comedy the letter N English, because Comedy in English is also a Twitter handle in Berlin, Germany, and so we could not take that, nor do we have the budget to try to buy it from them. So Comedy the letter N English on X. You can follow me at Michael Magid on all social media platforms. That is all the time for Comedy in English, guys, and we are out. Later, guys.